Here we go. So a very, very warm welcome, everyone. And this is the second of our 4 sessions on Buddhist mindfulness. So let's start today with an excellent mind so that we make excellent karma over the coming hour and a half that we're together. And as you know by now, then this good mind, excellent mind, means that we have a big mind, inclusive of everybody, but in particular of our own parents and family and all those who figured strongly in this life's karma, humans, animals, whatever it may be. We try and feel as though they're really here with us, whether they're still alive or not, doesn't matter. And that we are here learning the Dharma for all of their benefit. And of course, for our own benefit, because in the long term, we hope to help them. So a big mind and a loving mind, whereby we try to remember the deepest, most beautiful, most meaningful, purest love we've ever felt for anybody, and try to feel that same love for all of these beings that are just like they're here with us. Then on their behalf, then we, in our Dharma joy, we take refuge and we give rise to bodhicitta so that we listen to these teachings in this best of all minds, both sorts of bodhicitta, whereby we realize the interdependence, the vastness of this universe and the voidness. And at the same time, with great love, we feel a need to serve, a need to be a friend for everybody. Sonje chodan soje chonamla, choncho bado dane chapsanje, dage jenso jepe sanamje, Drola penchera sanje dropara sho. Semchen tamche dewa dang, dewa judang dempara joche. Dongal dang, dongal je judang chalwara joche. Dongal mepe dewa dampa dang, men chalwara joche. Nering chatang, netang chalwe. Tanyom Chempola Ne Paranjorachi. Deyata Shame Shamawati Shamata Shachum Om Kore Mam Kore Marasite Karota Keore Techovati Oloyane Bishudane Male Malapana Ye Kukure Kukure Kaka Grase Grasana Muki Paramuki Amuki Shamitani Sawa Graha Bandanani Grihita Sawa Para Prawadina Vimukta Marapasha Sata Pita Buddha Mudra Anut Katita Sava Mare Butsarita Parishura Bigha Santu Sava Mara Kamani Palden Sawe Lama Rinpoche Tagye Chewara Pende Denshula Kadrin Chempo Gone Jizonte Koson Toche Madro Sadu Sol. So without repeating too much, let's see how far we got from last week. The big point to know about Buddhist mindfulness is that the most global term, mindfulness, actually incorporates those 3 things: care, awareness, and mindfulness, properly speaking, as we say in English. Care, awareness, properly speaking. So let's revisit those briefly this morning. and then go on more specifically to mindfulness of body, which we started last time, and to mindfulness of feelings this morning. So let me screen share if I can. Yes, this one. So I hope you can see that. You should be seeing it. So these three things: care, awareness, and mindfulness. If you kind of look at the image and remind yourself of it, and then now what we're going to look at first is care. And in the Mahayana sense, out of our three types of Buddhist, if you remember that from last week, the Mahayana Buddhist, the care is this progression from refuge to love to compassion to bodhicitta. We'll look at that. Then we'll look at awareness as the one-pointed presence that many people think of as mindfulness, being present one-pointedly in the moment, being with things is awareness. And then we'll go on to mindfulness. We'll carry on with our reflections about being embodied, being mindful of the Buddha's teachings about being in a human body, and all being well, we'll go on to mindfulness of our feelings and to see what feelings means, and in particular, the relationship between feelings and the outcome of our feelings, which can be sufferings of samsara. So let's leave that one for a moment. There we are. Now we are back together. And so the care. If you remember last week, there are three types of Purush. Remember, Purusha, precious human beings with a potential. And they all care in their own way, and because they are caring and because they can learn from his teachings, then the Buddha taught them each in their own ways. Now, we can very roughly put ourselves in one or another of those categories, but I think the truth of the matter, if you remember the three types of Purush, we'll come back to them in a second. In reality, there's a bit of each of them in all of us. I certainly find that. So depending on the time of the day or the month of the year or a particular period in your life, you can be more one than the other. So we're looking at the way they care. And what we're really looking at is how through everything they are, through all of their life, they have established their own moral compass. I don't know if you know this idea. I think most people are native English speakers, but like a compass that helps us know the true north and where to go and to work out where we are and which direction to take. Then people establish their own moral compass. They know, or they have some idea, some inner feeling of where they want to take their life. So for the first type of Purush, which is the samsaric type of Purush, but although they are still pretty much plumbed into samsara, they want to make samsara as good as it can be. So these are very valid, kind, caring, mindful of their actions, human beings. And their moral compass is to be a good human being and a better human being. And they listen to the Buddha's teachings They have an idea about reincarnation and karma, and so they are mindful of the fact that what they're doing now in this life, through their actions, is sowing the seeds of what they will become in a future life. It's like taking a pen to write a story. Our actions are writing the story of our future, our actions of body and speech and mind. So they know this, and they want to only act in a way which is helpful and positive and creating good karma. So the Buddha teaches them more than anything else the 10 virtuous actions, their opposites, the 10 non-virtuous actions, and a little bit about meditation, because usually this one person who wants to be a good human being wants to know how to still their mind to a certain extent so they can find peace, so they can be more comfortable with themselves, with their mind. So this first type of human, precious human, like all the types of precious human, will take refuge. Refuge is the basis for all of our Buddhist path. And you'll remember one thing that distinguishes Buddhist mindfulness from secular mindfulness is that Buddhists are on a path. We're taking everything we are somewhere. We're not just staying as we are. And however slowly, whatever it comprehends, we have the idea of being on a journey that will end up in liberation. So all of our 3 types of Purush, practicing mindfulness, awareness, and care, take refuge. And refuge is very important. And I think I can safely say none of us understands it. Because I've been told that by my own teachers. Akon Rinpoche used to say, when you really understand refuge, you're Buddha. Because what is refuge? We are taking refuge in the Buddha, not as a historical founder of a religion, but Buddha as the absolute nature of everything, of mind. And at the beginning, it's really rather crazy because you take refuge in something you don't know very much about. But nevertheless, something inside us inspires, and we place our trust in the Buddha, the Buddha's teachings, and those who keep those teachings alive. Then the more that we progress, the more we master our minds, the more we observe life, the more we observe Dharma, karma at work, impermanence, suffering, the more we get a taste for peace of mind, liberation, then the more we start to realize what Buddha achieved. The more we start working with our anger and our lust and our stupidity, the more we realize how amazing it is to conquer our minds. So bit by bit, and then we have deeper experiences of shunyata and so on. We start to realize what Buddha means, but all Buddhists take refuge. Now, that's the basis, the foundation must be there for the Buddhist path. But then when we look at our 3 types of Purush, precious human beings, then on that basis, the next step is commitment. You can't make a journey, follow a path anywhere unless you're committed. Maybe if you're very spaced out, you might intend to go down this road, which ends up in Dumfries. But maybe after 50 meters, it's a very nice forest path off to the left. And so you start going down the forest path and you forget completely about Dumfries or wherever it is you're going. So if you think about a journey where you are taking your whole being, you are making this life your journey to where you want to go, then obviously some degree of commitment is needed because life's complicated, it's messy. Our own minds are unreliable. So there's an obvious need for some kind of commitment to get you ahead. So then our three types of Buddhist in this part, which is care, commit themselves one way or another. Of course, refuge is the basic commitment. But the first type, the samsaric, good human being, will take precepts not to kill, not to harm other life, not to lie, to have a pure sexual conduct with other beings, and not to steal, and then to respect their own body by not intoxicating it. So they're called lay precepts, and that sounds quite religious, but when you think of it, if you've got some idea of the power of karma, then we help ourselves by taking the commitment, of I won't kill, so that even when there are these huge mosquitoes and lots of them, and all of your reflex is to go splat, you don't. I remember sitting in Harare, the old shrine room there, which is a boma. It's a very traditional building with a thick thatched roof. And I was sitting there with Rinpoche's nephew, Tsering Tashi. And being a monk, he had his shoulders bare. And it was the time of year when there's these huge black mosquitoes. And so we were sitting there for an empowerment. And I could see his eyes going down to his bare arms and the shoulders, and these huge mosquitoes landing. And he just looked at me and they were sort of, yes, nothing to do. And then they got a good meal. So, even when we will be tempted to spray our garden so that the flowers are pretty, no aphids, no pests, we realize that no. So we don't just rely on our natural love of other beings. We put strict rules so that no matter what. So anyway, lay precepts. Now, a second type of Purush has they want to get out of samsara, had enough. We saw that last week. So they, on top of that, take more commitments that will help keep them out of what normally leads us into samsara. And so they take mainly the monk or the nun's vows, whereby all our involvement with the normal human striving for food, for clothes, for property, for effective relationships and family and nationalism and homeland and involvement with local politics, all kinds of things, they just cut off. You go to the quietest place you can, you wear the simplest clothes you can, you beg for your food. All of that to totally strip away what normally gets people into actions that often harm other beings and make us be reborn into samsara. So that is their care. And it's principally a care for themselves. They're looking after their own karma, their own future, beautifully, by making their actions only ever good actions, actions of body, actions of speech. Their vows are mainly vows of body and speech. And then the care of the Bodhisattva, which builds up on these first two. They build up the renunciate, the second type of Purush, of course, is going to avoid the 10 harmful actions. So then the Bodhisattva cares desperately for everyone's well-being. So they take the two types of Bodhisattva vow, the aspiration vow, whereby they train their mind, and then the practice vow, where they actually commit their actions every day to very strict guidelines of you mustn't do this and you must do that. So there is this care. And in the diagram I showed you, we saw that the Bodhisattva's care is mainly based in the two types of Bodhisattva vow. So because of that care, now if we move up to the second part of our overall picture, then one will cultivate awareness. Now, cultivating awareness, which many of you do, or many people do in secular mindfulness practice, is about being present. So just now we were considering being the mindfulness of body, or last week we started. So what do we do for that? One very famous one very basic one is mindful walking. So with that, we are learning to be with our body. Now, the actual mindful walking means that your awareness stays with the sensations in the sole and the heel of your foot. And the point of awareness, it is undistracted, which means a one-pointed or a single thread, whereby our awareness stays with the foot. And we learn to do it very slowly. So as the heel comes down, we're feeling the heel, and then as the sole comes down, we're feeling the sensations there, and then we feel the weight coming off the heel and coming onto the ball of the foot and the toes, and then lifting the leg up into the air without any distraction. We follow through, and then we shift it to the other foot, and we develop one-pointed being down there with our feet. Now, with the actual mindful awareness, we are not thinking anything about being rooted, and it's a miracle to walk on the earth, and all the kind of wonderful things you see on Thich Nhat Hanh's posts and so on. That's mindful thinking. The actual awareness is just being. We're looking at awareness now. Just being in the moment with your body. So this course is not mindfulness and awareness instruction. It's an overview of the whole process. We've got plenty to do, so I won't spend time, but when we do mindfulness courses, then we need to get up and then walk backwards and forwards and to be aware. Now, one very good exercise, because that's just walking, it's about your feet, that Akon Rinpoche used to share with us, was with the hands. So I've got something here. I've got a little crystal ball. And so here it's like the feet, but you have the ball in one hand. So then you're aware of the sensations. So if I analyze it, which you don't do, but just so I can talk to you, it's a little bit cold because it's crystal. It's very smooth, it's heavy. And then this is going to be transferred from this hand to this hand. And I'll be aware of it in this hand, all the sensations that are there, and then take it back to put it in the other hand. And it will be a one-pointed being with the sensations. Now, I'd like to take advantage of this to quickly go into all four types of mindfulness, even though we're in mindfulness of body now. So what we'll see later is that when we say feelings, feelings is a very, very restricted term in Dharma. It's not your feelings about the government or your feelings about your dog or your cat. It's not that kind of English meaning of the word feelings. There are only three feelings: pleasant, unpleasant, nothing happening. You could say neutral, but there's nothing happening. It's not as though there's a neutral feeling happening. There's nothing happening. When you analyze feelings and not what goes around feelings, you'll see that there are only those three. Things are either nice, not nice, or nothing happening. This is what we mean by feelings, Vedana. Now, some texts make that 5. It's a bit academic. So it can be physically nice. It can be mentally nice, pleasant. It can be physically unpleasant, or it can be mentally unpleasant. Nothing happening is nothing happening, whether it's mental or physical. It's neutral. So there you've got 5. So now, if I'm being aware in the sense of the 4 types of mindfulness, then with the mindfulness of body, then there's what's actually going on, the messages I'm receiving second after second, the weight, the coldness, the actual feel that's there in my hand. And then as I'm moving it to the other hand and the fingers rock to tip it, the new sensation as the weight goes from the middle finger to the little finger. I'm aware of that. And aware of the feeling of moving the hand. And then let's stop there. Let's stop there. Now, not just that, I'm aware that I'm enjoying this. My mind is pleasant. Ooh. 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 That was nice. That was nice. And then the feel of plop, plop. Well, whatever it was, maybe it was pleasant, maybe it was unpleasant. But I'm aware not just of the physical sensation, but of the feeling. And then I'm aware of my mind. Third, mindfulness of mind. The mind is sending messages, and the mind is receiving messages. I'm looking at the color and the pattern. So there's a sort of admiration for what's there, going on silently with a pleasant feeling. But then I'm also sending a message to the hand, move, 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 getting closer, be prepared to tip. Now, oh, you're almost there. Be prepared to receive this hand. And oh, there it goes. I'm aware of the mind seeing and coordinating, controlling, mindfulness of mind. And then if I have mindfulness of Dharma, then there'd be at one and the same time through all my former training, perhaps, awareness that although this ball seems out there, actually all of these experiences, the color, the weight, are going on in here, in the brain, interdependence. So awareness would be in each living split second to be aware of the sensations, the feelings, the mental activity that controls what's going on and responds to what's going on, and then the Dharma teachings of mindfulness. So we learn to become aware. And then you can do body scans, where you let your awareness go down to your toes and up to the top of your head, so that you become more aware of your body, undistracted. And then there are just more and more exercises related to the body that help us be aware and present in the moment. But as we saw last week, the fact that we have this basic care and that we are committed be careful what we do, is making us train in being aware and present. But the actual mindfulness is now that we are alive in the moment and aware of mind reacting and controlling, aware of the feelings we have as this happens and that happens, pleasant, unpleasant. Now, the real mindfulness is applying the Buddha's teaching to all of that so that we can fulfill our own moral compass. Because, as we saw last week, you can be very aware as you prepare a terrorist bomb. Doesn't mean you are Buddhist mindful, the fact that you are in the moment. So then as we, moment after moment, are aware of, now when we say body, body includes speech. Sometimes we separate body and speech, but when we talk about mindfulness of body, then it's also what this tongue is doing and the sounds that are coming out. So it means we're aware, for instance, of our intending mind, which in a very, very fast way is programming the words you're going to make. And we're probably aware of our own eye contact, looking at the other person, seeing their reaction, anticipating their reaction. So we're aware of many, many things, the actual speech, the messages coming in through our senses, our own mind's intention, or if it's proper mindfulness, then what the Buddha said about right speech, harmful speech, silence, and so on. So the mindfulness is in the awareness of the moment, using that moment as virtuously, as harmlessly, as positively, as productively as possible for our own development. And for the third type of Purush, our development as a Bodhisattva. So when we go back to the 10 virtues, we're aware of now more generally, well, here you are in one of these things, a human suit, a human, if you imagine going down in a submarine, if you're in a submarine, you realize how limited you are. You've got this periscope. Thinking of all the World War II films in my childhood, where you're down, up periscope, and they're looking. But that's all you can see through this tube, with a little thing poking up above the top of the water to look around to see what there is. That's the only visual information you've got. And maybe you've got sonar and microphones, and that's the only hearing information you've got. So we can realize in something like a submarine how limited our access to reality is. And so we're in this human body. We've only ever seen through these eyes. We've only ever heard. Everything that happened to us in this life came through this body, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and our nerve endings. That's how we know. That's how we know. So we become aware that now we're in this body with its hormones and with its vision and so on. And we're in a world with other people. Then this body can help us to liberation, or it can get us involved with what makes more karma and more harmful karma or helpful karma. So the mindfulness is all about remembering the Buddha's teachings about being embodied. Now, as I said last week, this means our precious human existence. In Mahayana, we are not rubbishing our body. We are thinking of it as a precious opportunity, despite despite the fact that it has birth, aging, sickness, death, and all the other shortcomings of being stuck inside this. When our mind is out of the body, it has a much more panoramic awareness. Can do. We're limited most of the time to what we can do. And then our body, with all of its chemistry and reactions, sees other beings, reacts to them. So anyway, I must move on because there's sort of an agenda. There's a lot to be reflected on about the Buddha's teaching of being embodied and how to use this precious opportunity as a bodhisattva. Now, in particular, in the 7 points of mind training, it goes into the detail of when life is tough, how to use that. When life is beautiful, how to use that. How to use these circumstances of being here, embodied, experiencing this batch of karma in this life, one amongst many. We can use it. But now I want to move on to the second mindfulness, which is feelings. Feelings. I've explained what they are. Very simple. Pleasant, unpleasant, nothing happening. Now this it's not the root, but practically speaking, it's at the root of our suffering. So as we become aware of feelings, then what are the Buddha's teachings about feelings? Well, karma, but then when we look at karma, we normally say karma causes and effects, results, they're results. But now we need to look at karma in the way the Buddha teaches it, which is as the 12 links of interdependence. We need to know about those links. Now, that's not easy. It's a subject nearly all lamas avoid. You ask them to give a teaching on shunyata, voidness. You ask them to give a teachings on the Four Noble Truths. They'll be very obliged. You say, oh, they want you today to talk about the 12 links, then lamas suddenly go a bit, Now, why is that? Well, for whatever reasons, in the Tibetan tradition, they never developed very much the Bodhisattva version of the 12 links of interdependence. They rely on what we call the basic teachings, the Shravaka teachings, which are mainly designed for people who are going to be monastics and get out of, go to a monastery, cut off everything so that your mind goes deeply into peace. But anyway, some of them will take up the challenge. It's complicated. It's complicated, the 12 links. But let's have a quick peek at them. And in your support document, you've got a little bit. Now, the 12 links, they're in this famous diagram, the Wheel of Life. They're around the edge. There's 12 little cartoons that help us to remember what the 12 links are. Now, there are 12 links. And they end up in suffering because we're looking at the 12 links that make us be reborn. And once there is rebirth, then there's always suffering. For humans, 8 types of suffering. If we look at it that way, birth. Now that just doesn't mean being born physically in a maternity ward. It means starting all over again in a new life. You're going to, if you're going to live 70 years, it's here we go. A whole new story for 70 years. And this is where it starts. Look, parents, you're stuck with those for all this life. They're going to brainwash you for the next few years. And where are you born? In Germany, South Africa, Honolulu, That's going to be your environment until you have the possibility, and so on and so on. So birth is a big thing. It's not just about being in the womb and childbirth. It's starting the whole new story. Aging is what happens as that karmic story already written unfolds. You have to go through it, and then your own experiencing submarine, this body, which is going to grow and be young and youthful, and it's going to start going wrong and not function so well. And then from time to time, it's going to get sick, depending on your karma, and it will really misfunction. And then in the end, it's going to die. Now, death is not just on your deathbed. It means this long story that you've got involved with, and that's been everything you've known as a life, that defines all your thinking. You're leaving that story behind now, and you're going into the unknown before a whole new different story from your karma starts. And we get attached to things, and we've become safe. Even in terrible things like being sick or being in poverty, it's familiar, and the unfamiliar is scary. So death is the leaving. It's big. Birth, aging, sickness, death. That's what Buddha wanted to get beyond. Then the 4 other sufferings of being human, not getting what you want, that hurts. Getting what you don't want, that hurts. Striving to have what you need, earn a living, have safety, a roof over your head, pay the insurance, getting what you need, and then keeping what you have. So that's link 12. Link 11 is rebirth. Once you're reborn, then inevitably that will lead to link 12. So all of the links are, once you've got this link, then inevitably this must happen, the next thing. So once we're born as human, reborn, you have to be born, age, sometimes be sick, and then eventually die, plus the other things. So when we look at the 12 links, why are feelings so important? It's because links 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 you can't do anything about. They happen through the whole of your past history. The first link where we can do something is feelings. Link 7 in the 12 links. Now these links are writing your whole future story. And if you want to take suffering out of that future story, understanding your reactive feelings to other people, to circumstances, to your own mind, to your own thinking process, what is pleasant and unpleasant, and the power of pleasant and unpleasant to take you into things, it's vital. So the mindfulness of feelings is not being aware of them, that's awareness. It's applying the Buddha's teachings so that we manage our feelings in a way which takes us where we're going, that fulfills our own moral compass. So now let's look at these 12 links. 13th link, coffee. So there are 2 ways, at least, we can look at the 12 links. One is historically, over a vast period of time, infinite period of time. And the other way is in each moment. So let's do the more obvious one first. I'm not sure whether it's a good idea to share the screen or not. Maybe. Let's try. So the first link is ignorance. Now, let's say confused ignorance. I can't go into it now, there's no time, but there are 2 types of ignorance. There's One of them is karmically neutral, and it's the basis for all our suffering, is the fact that we ignore our true nature, our Buddha nature. Our mind is caught up in consciousness, in the present moment reality. It's not aware of its unchanging, perfect, pure, what we call Buddha nature. Now, fortunately, that ignorance is karmically neutral, and because otherwise it's happening all the time. We'd be stained irreparably if we were making more and more harmful karma every moment by ignoring our Buddha nature. So that is neutral ignorance. It is the ignorance that's been going on for us, for most people, since time immemorial. It's the background cause for all the suffering. But then on top of that, we have relative level ignorance, where we're not aware of the interdependence or the power of karma, and so on and so on. Relative Dharma. And so we get it wrong, and we hurt each other, and we hurt ourselves, and we make karma. So that's a general background statement. The two sorts of ignorance are the first reason. So in the logic of the 12 links, once that ignorance is there, then what happened in the past? We made lots of link 2. So that first link is represented by a blind person. We're in the dark. Can't see where we're going. Now, once there's that ignorance, then it means we get it wrong and we make tainted action. Now, the word tainted in Dharma doesn't mean unvirtuous, as you might expect. It means dualistic, self and other. So whether we do good deeds to help each other or harmful deeds to harm each other, they are both tainted, because as long as our mind is dualistic, we're going to carry on being reborn in samsara. If we do virtuous dualistic deeds, a pleasant samsara. If we do harmful dualistic deeds, an unpleasant samsara, but still we will be reborn. So here in link 2, we're not looking at any particular action, but all of our past lives and all of the unskillful, all the skillful, unskillful, tainted actions we did in past lives that caused us to have karma. So this is represented by a potter turning a wheel. Now, can I go down? Yeah. And the potter turning the wheel. Can you see the potter and the wheel? I hope so. Anyway, that's interesting, because the potter and the wheel, you've got something seemingly out there and physical, the clay on the wheel that's turning, and you've got the potter's mind, which is shaping that gradually into something the pot is going to become. So there's an interaction of mind and matter. So this is creation. They're called karmic creations. Creations because of ignorance. That's link 2. So here in these first 2 links, we're looking at all of our past in general. Because of ignorance, we've done all sorts of things. And that gave us the mind, the ongoing mind that we have. So that ongoing mind, consciousness, is link 3. So it's the mind carrying all of its karmic potentials, the mind that came into this life during the bardo, the mind that joined up with your father's sperm and your mother's ovum to make this precious human existence, So that particular, now we've gone from the past in general, all of the past. In link 3, we're looking at the particular consciousness between your last life and this life, the one that carried all the seeds for this life, all the potentials, all the karmic potentials. where so much of this life story, was already written by past deeds. So all of that karma carried in a consciousness. So this is represented by a monkey is gathering fruits. It's the fruits of our past actions. So then, once there is that consciousness carrying all the karma to be reborn, it's going to home in on your future parents, making love, creating a body. And then from the moment of conception onwards, we have a physical incarnation. Now, of course, it starts off as being just one cell, two cells. We're not yet the being we are now. And so its next link is called name and form. So the form is the cells as they're developing, but some things are only there nominally because we don't yet have nerves. We don't yet have lungs and hearts, and we don't have eyes to see. They're developing in the womb. So some things are there nominally. That's what the word name means. It's nama rupa in Sanskrit. Nama means name. Some things are there nominally. And this, so that means now you are incarnated. You can't do anything about that. I mean, it's happened already. We're in this name and form. So then once there is this conceived body because of the karmic consciousness out of the bardo that took life there, then there has to be, you see, once there's link, the former link, once there's this, there has to be that. So there has to be, as the fetus, as the embryo, the fetus develops, the 6 gateways of perception, 6 doors of perception due to name and form. Sorry, I didn't do the image for the name and form. It's 2 people in a boat. So our various mental potential that came out of the bardo and our physical potential, name and form. And actually name and form in other places when we study it means the 5 aggregates, Anyway, that will give rise to these 6 perceptual gateways. And there you have either a house in 6 sections in this image, or sometimes it's one room with 6 windows in other wheels of life. It means that now, as we develop as an embryo and as a fetus and then born as a child, then we have these 6 doors of perception. We can see. That's what the human existence is. We see things. We see what our karma brings us. And we hear, number 2. And we smell, number 3. Not we smell, but we smell. You know? With our nose, we can smell. And then we taste with our tongue. And then we have nerves. So we can feel hot, cold, hunger, thirst, textures, and physical sensations. Sexual sensations, all sorts of things. Number 5. And then the 6th doorway of perception is our mind, where our mind can think, can remember, can have its own perception. Like the eyes see form, then the mind has its own inner field, its own inner world. Now, because of that, once we have seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and mental activity, then there will be contact, link number 6. This means our power to see makes contact with visibles. For instance, the eye sees an ice cream, for instance. The eye sees an ice cream. So this thing in here, the eye, well, you can't see me. I don't know if you can just see the diagram. Sees a visible, which is a shape or a form, shape or color. and makes contact with it. So contact between our 6 doors of perception and their 6 fields, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, mental activity. Ding, contact, seeing contact, hearing contact, thinking contact. It happens in split seconds. It's happening without stop all the time. You can't do much about it. So that's link 6. It's shown by 2 lovers in deep contact, subject and object. Now, number 7, which is feelings, which is what we're being mindful of here. This is the first of these 12 links where we can intervene. So once there is the contact and the eye sees the ice cream. Now, maybe you don't like ice cream, so there, when you see it. Or maybe you love ice cream and it's, as soon as the eye sees it, either something glows inside as nice or it feels repulsed inside. It's I'm thinking of some kind of ceremony where you've got people arriving at a ball, and as they arrive at the door, there is somebody who announces them, Lord and Lady so-and-so, and now Mr. and Mrs. this. So as they come in, then if you know some of the people, when these ones come through the door, all of a sudden you feel nice. Oh, George and Mildred. Oh, nice. But then the next one that comes in, the Count and Countess of so-and-so, as soon as you see them, because of all you know, all you've experienced, not so nice. Now, not at the ball with people being announced, but every moment, we are seeing or hearing or smelling or tasting or touching. This is life. This is our karma. And we are having these reactions. Like it, don't like it. Pleasant, unpleasant. Nice, not nice. So much of the time, for most things, nothing going on. So to show the intensity of how that can be, the image is somebody with an arrow in their eye. The pain struck. So somebody's got a microphone on. If you could just check your microphone and turn it off. I can't without leaving the shared screen. So now, once there is this feeling of pleasant or unpleasant, then that could just come and go, but it doesn't. Because what happens next is attachment to the feeling. So when it's pleasant, we want to linger. Our mind goes back. When we look in detail, then our mental consciousness tells our sense, if it sees something nice, wait, stay with that one, look at it a bit more. If we hear something nice, we're attracted to it. So there's a feeling which can be powerful or less powerful. So we call that craving. The word is probably a bit strong, but that's what it looks like in the text. Craving. It's we either want more of it if it's nice, or we want to get away from it if it's unpleasant. And so the craving part is represented by a picnic. Because in the short term, if it's the ice cream or something, whatever it is, then we might feel, ice cream, pleasure. Why not? Let's have one of those. And we're not thinking so much of the long term and our diet and all the rest. It's yummy, yummy. And generally, we get reborn in samsara because we don't have a long-term vision of many lifetimes. We have a short-term craving, immediate pleasure, no matter what the cost, relationship with our experience. So this that carries on from our pleasant feelings is called craving. We linger with it. We start then to have memories, to entertain ideas and fantasies of how it could be. Now, once they get us, then that leads to link number 9, where now you're really plotting. You think, can I afford an ice cream? I'm not supposed to have one, but maybe I could just do one. Or maybe I could eat half and give it to the birds. And it does look very nice. And so it's all of the way our mind starts to tell itself a story and to imagine how it could be and to talk yourself into getting more involved. Oh, it was very nice what he posted on Facebook. Yes, I'll maybe get in touch with that person, and so on and so on. And things start to evolve. And then they evolve more deeply. Maybe we could go out together somewhere. Yes. So how am I going to do that? I don't want to look too forward and pushy. So what am I going to do? And so on. We get all stewed up into something. So that's a much stickier, you see, and it's through the power of habit. It's called grasping, where we're really holding on to the ideas and the possibilities. And, you know, when people buy themselves a new car or do something, sometimes they explain all the way they've talked themselves into it and rationalized it so that it's a good idea. But basically, deep inside, they really wanted it. I think one of my, let's come out of the screen. I want to, there we go. One telefilm I saw once, it really left an impression. So we're going back a little while now. When, remember cars' keys, when they started having the little button on the key so that you could lock the doors or open the doors before you got to the car. When they first came along, round about that time, there was a French telefilm, a little village. And it's the story of the butcher and his wife, who was quite happy being the local butcher, until he saw that his wife was, she was a bit ambitious. And once they went to some event, and the mayor, who had one of these cars, he came out and he clicked his key, and the car doors opened, and his wife was looking at that, thinking, yeah, that's what we ought to be, but look at. And then, so he's really embarrassed because he has to go over and put the key in the door and turn it and then go around and unlock her door and let her in. That one incident, the feeling, and then the getting involved with it and the grasping. So he ends up murdering people and doing all sorts of things. So he's got enough money so that he can buy a car where he can click the key and the door will open. You see this snowballing, how from, and it happens with human beings, you know, sometimes a whole story of spending a life together with somebody starts with eyes meeting and a first feeling. It starts with a little thing, a few words said, a poem that's read, whatever it is. It's amazing. So the grasping, which is the, which link is that, number 9? It leads to what's called becoming. Now, becoming is where you actually create the karma with body, speech, and mind. You do. You've thought about it, you've got stickily involved, it's irresistible, so you move into the next step, which is doing, making action of body, speech, and mind. And in the case of unvirtuous action, action that will cause karma, future lives. So that's link 10. Now, links 1 and 2 are all of the past in general. Ignorance that led to all of your past karmic creations. Link 3, consciousness. Consciousness leading to name and bardo consciousness, leading to name and form, leading to the 6 gateways of perception, leading to contact, and then that leading to feeling, then the feeling leading to involvement, and then the involvement to the grasping, and then the grasping to action, number 10. That's all about this life. But because of the action, then number 10 in the link, there'll be future rebirth. So rebirth is link 11. And once you've got rebirth, then there will be suffering, sickness and death. Suffering is birth, aging, sickness, and death. So now this last one, suffering. I think it's not the topic here, but just to say something so that you've got it straight. Often you hear Buddha says that all is suffering. All samsaric existence is suffering. And it sounds over the top. Because it's like today here, I'm looking out the window at the spring flowers and the blue sky with nice pretty white clouds and so on. I think that's a bit much to say this is suffering. It's actually quite nice. So we need to know that suffering, dukkha, has 3 levels. One is manifest suffering, which is when it hurts. When our body hurts, when our mind hurts. So that's not all the time. That's not all the time. That will be whenever it does hurt. And people's lives varies. Some have lots and lots of hurt. Some have very little hurt. That's the manifest suffering, which obviously isn't there all the time. And it's what most of us experience as happiness or suffering. But why is there happiness or suffering? And in particular, that manifest suffering is because our consciousness carries karma, the causes of future suffering. So even if somebody is happy and having a good time, imagine you are the Buddha and you can see their karma and what's lined up for, because of all the things they've done, all the karma they carry, and who can see, round the corner, they're going to get the bad medical news or whatever it is. And anyway, they're going to die. And then they'll pick up their next existence if they've wasted this life and so on. So the causes of future suffering that we carry is the second type of suffering. Now, we can't see that. We can't experience it. So, but enlightened beings and relatively enlightened beings feel it, sense it. And then whatever relative karma people carry as causes of future suffering, unless you are spiritually very awakened, everyone carries this ignorance of who they truly are, which is so wonderful. They're so pure, so beautiful, so perfect. And instead of being in that moment after moment, we're in some kind of relative reality somewhere and carrying many seeds, unpredictable seeds of future karma. So that's the one that roots suffering as still having to be reborn, and our mind totally locked up in the consciousness of this existence, that existence, rather than recognizing its timeless nature. That's why all of those existences, whether it's a spring day or a horrible day, whether you're sick or whether you're well, behind it, there is this basic suffering of not being who we really are. So anyway, suffering is link 12. And feelings is where we can start to change all of our future, because we realize how we like some people, we like some circumstances, we like some food, we like sensations of whatever it is, fresh air, or maybe you like the sensation of stale air, a cigarette smoke-filled room, whatever it is you like and you're drawn to. Now, we can work on that, and Dharma teaches us how to work on that. And in particular, in the backup document, you'll see I've made a little list of the sort of things we can change. Because once we recognize our feelings of repulsion, and attraction, then instead of being attracted to what people conventionally think of as beautiful, as pretty, as pleasant, we can change our reflexes. We can see the beauty in what people call ugly people. We can see the beauty in age. And it's amazing what we can discover about ourselves and our reactivity and how it got us into our various adventures, how it made us choose our partners, our friends, our career, the place we lived, the kind of clothes we wear, the sort of music we listen to, everything. And we can retrain our mind in many ways. So feelings are the key to skillful karma, to work on our mind's liberation. And mindfulness of feelings is not just being aware of your feelings, but in the light of that awareness, because you care, then you remember the Buddha's teachings and you don't let your feelings carry you into craving and grasping and harmful actions. So I think that's as much as we've got time for this morning. The 12 links is a big topic. The only other thing to say is in the moment, in each moment, we get a different version, not this all your past lives and this life and your future lives version of the 12 links. But in the moment, if you're not aware of your Buddha nature, that ignorance causes your mind to create the present moment, and then you will be in name and form. Your 5 aggregates will present the experience of the moment, and you'll be either involved with it or not involved with it. You'll be born into that moment. And you know, very often in Vajrayana teachings, we talk about the unborn mind. And this is where we learn to keep the mind in its pure nature, in its center, and not to let it be pulled into the reactivity, the karmic reactivity of life situations. Anyway, this course is an overview. It's not a teaching. It's not a thorough training in all of that. We find that in 7-point mind training, Mahamudra teachings. In the real training, there's so much, so much. We are just having an overview today, most essentially to understand what mindfulness of feelings is. So thank you very much. So now I'll find my little icon and unpin myself and invite your comments or your questions.
Hello.
Hello, yeah, yes.
I wanted to ask, where is the fine line between a reactivity which is good, like for example, if I have a good experience with Dharma, I will be, doing whatever I can to follow it, or if I have a bad experience with the company I'm in, I'll do everything to get away. So this is kind of a good reactivity, but you are talking generally that this is what keeps us in samsara. So where do we draw the line?
I don't think we can draw a line until we are quite knowledgeable about these teachings, to understand the difference between, first, virtue and non-virtue, what we call good deeds and harmful deeds, helpful deeds, harmful deeds. And so we need to understand that, because they are the cause for either our future happiness, where we are well because we have friends, we have health, we have good situations and good karma, if we do the virtuous deeds, and where if we do the harmful deeds, then we're going to be not well, because we will lose friends, we will be in conflict, we'll have poor health, we'll have short life, and so on and so on. Be born into places that are unfortunate. So we need to understand virtue and non-virtue. then we need to understand that whether it's virtue or non-virtue, as long as we are in an I world, where I exist and I reinforce this notion of me, the story of me, and we strengthen the story of others so that there's a big duality. As long as we have that, then we're going to be reborn. So being reborn into a relative world, whether it's a pleasant one or unpleasant one, is suffering. And that's called what is tainted. And then we need to understand the 12 links better, so that as we observe our reaction to Dharma, our reaction to the workplace, then we see where the feelings, pleasant or unpleasant, comes in, where they lead to our mind getting involved, thinking, analyzing, being reactive, telling a story, and getting sometimes involved in a way where we want to damage other people or help other people. So the craving, and then the grasping, where we really get more deeply involved to the point of action. We need to analyze all of that to understand how we can be a better human being, and how in the longer term we can free ourselves from the causes of future suffering, and beyond that, through the deeper teachings, how we can free our mind when we're at home meditating from its tendency to duality, and to making more and more solid the story of me and I, and he said that and he shouldn't have said that, and all the rest of it, or Dharma, this is helping me. Wonderful. But then what is me? What is Dharma? We need to learn more about that. So I think we can't draw a line. We can't draw lines until we're much better informed. And I think the quest for clear and detailed knowledge and wisdom is a first priority.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ken, can I ask about moments?
Yes.
Yeah, when we talk about moments, you know, I mean, my kind of thing is like, you know, how can you have moment when everything is like moving constantly, you know, and changing constantly? So you hear things like just rest in the moment, be in the moment. So, you know, how can there be moment? You know, what is moment?
Yeah. Well, let me give you a stupid answer that's very true. What you're saying is very much like Nagarjuna's teachings on shunyata, on voidness, is that there cannot be a moment, because you can't find where it begins and where it ends, and it's gone anyway before you can even look at it to work out where it begins and where it ends. So he says, although we talk about time and moments, time cannot exist. Because if you could find one moment, then you could find the moment before it and the moment afterwards, and then you'd have time. But because we can't even find one moment, then either everything is one moment or we're lost. So that's ultimate truth teachings, and there's a lot of truth in it because it's ultimate truth. But then there's relative truth teachings, because relatively, of course, there's moments. And then there's this moment, you know. You're talking to me, I can see you. So even if I can't pin it down, which is not what we're talking about, we're saying, is there a moment? Maybe you can't define it, maybe you can't freeze it, but of course it's happening. Otherwise we wouldn't have gone on to Zoom this morning and these thoughts wouldn't be in our head. So of course they're there. It's just we can't pin them down and define them and analyze them or preserve them. And more than that, we will have a sequence of these moments non-stop, like it or not, until we're Buddha. Maybe a few more million years of these moments. So from that point of view, these moments that you can't find are very important, because they're Charlie moments or they're Ken's moments. And Ken's moments and Charlie's moments aren't the same. So The moments, that's why we have the 12 links in a moment, because as we get plunged into this moment's reality, and then in the next moment cling to that, and in the next moment start acting on it, we are lining up the future's moments. It's absolutely fascinating how we say ultimate truth and relative truth. We don't say ultimate truth and relative lies. So there's the truth of what's going on relatively, that's your story, my story. And there's the ultimate truth that you can't find even one bit of it. You can say that exists. That's really there. So being in the moment isn't like freezing a moment and then pickling yourself in it. It means accepting with more and more lucidity and a quiet, aware mind, whatever comes up and changes. It's not being in the moment, it's being in the flow. Now, the actual moments, it does say that super meditators, the ones whose shamatha is very good, they can actually experience moment by moment. So then they say, well, how long is a moment? Now, this is in the days before electronic stopwatches with hundredths of a second. And so they say it's about, I love the precision of it, it's about 1/60th of a finger snap. So divide that by 60. Some say 64. So there's a bit of controversy. And then others say, well, let's get more precise. And you take mushroom gills from underneath a mushroom. You pile up 60 or 64 of them. You squeeze them together. You get a very sharp pin, and you plunge it as fast as you can through the pile of mushroom gills. And the time it takes the needle point to go from one mushroom gill to the next is roughly, so they're saying that mind experience is like a film strip. You know, each film strip is one photo, but they go by so quickly that it gives a semblance of continuity. So especially in the Theravada teachings, they say there are mind moments, and that great meditators can be aware of moment by moment like this. And then it's just like a film, this moment, that moment, next moment, next moment. And the whole point of saying our mind is an illusion is because it makes a story out of individual moments that you can't capture. So well said.
Thank you.
And like I say, it's an answer that doesn't tell you anything. But
Hi, Ken. Could I just go over something not quite as profound as the last question?
Okay.
But when you were talking about the 12 links of interdependence, number 12, you were talking about suffering and the 3 types of suffering. I got a bit confused. I got manifest suffering, but then 2 and 3, I got them a bit confused. Could you just...
Okay, manifest suffering is when it hurts. The next one is called the suffering of change. And that is carrying the causes of future suffering. So it's not suffering yet, but because the cause is there, it's like a plant under the ground in the winter in your garden. Now, if that's a poisonous plant, then it's going to come up. And but it's not manifest yet, but it's there. So that's called the suffering of change. And it happens a lot with our good karma. You know, you have the good karma to be healthy, but then you're going to get sick afterwards. You have the good karma to be with people you love, but then they die or they go away, the relationship ends, and so on. So the suffering of change. Then the third one is called existential suffering. It's got a very complicated name. It's the suffering of being in these 5 aggregates, which by their very nature attract suffering to themselves, is the full name. So it means once you're born, you're going to suffer, baby, no matter what, you know. And it's the very suffering of being, not being in a body, but that our consciousness is plumbed into that body. rather than recognizing its Buddha nature, recognizing its peace. It is not at peace, it is troubled by the karmic existence it is in, through form, through feelings, through cognition processes, through samskaras, through consciousness, the 5 aggregates. So that's an existential suffering. And it says that that suffering, which is why the Buddha says all is suffering, said it's only what they call Aryas, or deeply realized beings, who feel it, who see it, who know it. And it says, a very interesting example is the example of an eyelash. It said if you have an eyelash in the palm of your hand, then you probably won't even feel it. So ordinary beings' sensitivity to this suffering of not being who we truly are is like the palm of the hand, nothing felt. But if that same eyelash gets into your eye, then not only is it very irritating, but you can't rest until you've taken it out. So when the mind goes deeper and realizing how gross and how dangerous being involved in our 5 aggregates can be, then one has to get one's mind back to the peace and the truth of the Buddha nature. So it says for the Aryas, the realized beings, then it's like the eyelash in the eye. It's a very interesting example to think about, because if I said to you, would you rather have an eyelash in the palm of your hand or in your eye? You'd probably rather have it in the palm of your hand. You say, I don't want to become a realized being if one is aware of the pain that's everywhere. It's an interesting reflection.
That's wonderful, yeah.
Our moral compass.
Thank you very much, Ken.
You're welcome, Kim. You're very welcome.
Ken, could I ask a question?
Yes, hi Dorcas.
Yeah. I was just wondering, could you say a little bit about clarity? And is clarity, does that come about through mindfulness? For some people struggle a lot. They don't understand their own mind. They don't know their own emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think sometimes the mindfulness help people develop more clarity, or do you need clarity to practice mindfulness?
Yeah, no, they help each other, but I think mindfulness is definitely what you need to develop clarity, definitely. When we look at, in the previous course, we did the 5 stages of the path. And remember that mindfulness was at the very beginning, the very basis of the path. But then based on the mindfulness, we need to change ourselves, everything we are. So that's important. And then that becoming a better, healthier person in the whole way we conduct our body, speech, and mind is the basis for the 3rd step of the stage of accumulation, meditation, helping us towards clarity. And clarity is mainly what comes in the 2nd of the 5 stages of the path, which is called fusion or junction. But it actually starts with mindfulness. So mindfulness is the beginning of a process that leads to clarity. And once there is the clarity, then that will make you so much more mindful than you've ever been before. It will bring such a joy in awareness and mindfulness because your mind is more connected to its pure nature.
Oh, so I would,
yeah.
I wonder if there's no, so with secular mindfulness, if you don't have like the deep values maybe and the ethics, then would that affect the clarity? I wonder.
Of course, but I mean, there'll be whatever clarity there is. I'm sure that secular mindfulness helps people be a lot more clear about who they are, what they're doing with their lives, how they're relating and reacting to other people. I'm sure there'll be that type of clarity. I think the sort of clarity I was talking about was more the deeper kind of spiritual clarity or meditative clarity that comes through Dharma.
Lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome, Dorcas. Okay, well, that's it for another week. And lovely to see you all. And thank you very much for coming along.
Thanks
And
very
let's
much.
dedicate
Thank
everything
you.
and anything that was good to
Yes.
all our fellow beings, and in particular to us becoming beacons of mindfulness for ourselves and for all of those around us. Sonam diye tamche zikbane tobne nyepe dranam pomchene jega naji palap chukvaye sipisole drowa drolwarasho janchob semcho rimpoche maje panam jejochi jepa nyampa me padam kongne kongdo perwarasho. Be well, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Ken. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Ken.
much.
That's
Draw
it.
now.
Thank you.
Giraffe. That was a nice giraffe. Thank you.
Thank you.